What up, babes? We are talking about my viewpoint on epidurals in labor. Now, if you know anything about me, I have been totally against epidurals in labor since before I was a mother. And now I'm going to talk about my viewpoint since I have given birth to twins with an epidural. I've grown up with my mom who gave birth 5 times with no pain medication. My dad's an OBGYN and he has patients all the time that get epidurals. About 80% of women today that are laboring do get an epidural. So it is very widely used, very widely accepted in labor. But when I was pregnant with my first son, I gave birth without an epidural because that's the way that I had been taught to do it. It's what I wanted. I felt like it was best for my body and my baby, and I loved the experience. Then I was pregnant a second time, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know that with my second birth, it was very quick, and I did it without an epidural. After labor, you release all of these endorphins and all this oxytocin, and there's all this bonding that happens, and it's a beautiful experience to give birth without pain medication. When I was pregnant with my twins last year, I had all of these discussions with my OBGYN about how I was going to do my birth naturally with twins, no pain medication. I was going to steer clear of a C-section. And it was just this long conversation that I had with my OBGYN. He was very open to the idea. He did, kind of talk me through all of the scenarios of why I might need an epidural just as a protective measure in case I have to go to C-section. I wouldn't have to go to sleep. I could have the epidural placed and they could take me right to C-section if there was an emergency situation with my twin babies. And my dad, who always encouraged pain-free labor and birth, really encouraged me to get an epidural as well. And I was totally against it. I knew I was going to give birth to my twins without an epidural. As I approached my due date in December, I started reading about epidurals with twins because I had a baby that was breech. My baby B, he was the one on top, was breech. And I wanted to know what labor and birth was going to be like with a breech baby. My OBGYN said that he would deliver a breech baby, but he felt a little uncomfortable with it. And I did not want a physician in the labor room being uncomfortable with birth. I wanted him confident and ready to go. And so I started reading about how I could give birth to a breech baby in a safe manner without an epidural. And what I learned through all of my research is that hands and knees for mom is a very safe way to birth a breech baby. When I got to the hospital in labor with my twins, I was 8 centimeters and my physician arrived and we talked about what was happening in labor. He did a sono and my baby B, Lawrence, was still breech. At this point, I asked my physician, "Are you comfortable with me giving birth to baby B on hands and knees?" And my physician responded that me being in the operating room on the operating room table, he did not feel comfortable me changing positions. It was just too risky. And so at that point, I looked at my husband and we had already decided that if my physician was not comfortable with me on hands and knees for my breech birth, that I would be okay with having an epidural placed. So anesthesiology came in, placed the epidural, at my request, a half dose. I said I wanted as little medication as possible because the whole point of the epidural is to be placed for safety precautions and then for my physician to manually put his hand up into my uterus, manually flip my baby Lawrence to head down, and he be birthed head down safely. YouTube content is great, but sometimes it's really hard piecing together all this information and content for you to love your birth experience. And that's why I've created a complete course. It's the backbone, everything that you need to love your birth experience. Plus, I am very pro daddy doula. I love it when dads are in there supporting mamas giving birth. So if you want me to join you on this journey and give you everything that you need to love your birth experience, then go ahead and click the link below, check out the course, and I am so excited to go on this journey with you. I gave birth to both babies in a safe and healthy manner, and this is what I think of epidurals now. I still think that if you are low risk, you have no emergency situations, and there's no reason for baby to be flipped manually, that you should attempt a med-free vaginal birth. Now, in my situation and other mom situations where they're high risk, where there are things to be accounted for like a breech baby, or there's a risk for going to C-section and an epidural is the middle ground for a vaginal birth, then I think that epidurals are a good way to go. It is a good middle ground because C-section is major abdominal surgery and it's not as healthy for baby if there is no emergency situation. And so for me, I had the epidural placed. My physician was able to manually turn my baby, and he could have done this without an epidural. It would have just been very, very painful for me as mom, for him to place his hand up into my uterus and flip my baby with no pain medication. That's my viewpoint on epidural. I still did not love the experience. I didn't love the way that it felt when anesthesiology placed the epidural. I didn't like this big lump that felt like it was going down my back, like I had a sack of rocks in my back. And then it dropped my blood pressure. I essentially blacked out. They had to give me medication to increase my blood pressure. And then when they removed the epidural, I had some back pain for about 3 weeks postpartum. But it was a great middle ground for me to be able to give birth to my babies in a very safe and healthy vaginal way. I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to link above my entire twin birth story if you want to hear it. I'll see you in the next video.